Hello everyone, this is Ian from Stars Football Cards and More. Today I wanted to make a Hall of Famer rookie card PC update video. Since the last video in this series, I think I did a year and a half ago or however long, I actually updated how I'm going about this collection. I actually sold off a majority of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s rookies because I realized that I was in way over my head and trying to go for every single rookie card of every single Hall of Famer is going to get very, very expensive very, very quickly. So I'm changing it to where I'm now only really chasing one rookie card per Hall of Famer because the original thing that inspired this collection in the first place was the exhibit that the Pro Football Hall of Fame had for a few years in the mid 2010s, and they only had one rookie card of each Hall of Famer. They didn't have every single rookie card. So keep it in line with what actually inspired this collection, I changed how I'm going about it to make it not only a lot easier, but also significantly cheaper because I won't have to pay $10,000 for Peyton Manning Contenders rookie autos. So, anyways, getting along track with this video here, we'll start with 1963. The inaugural class, starting with the 1948 Slingin' Sammy Baugh from Bowman. And then have the 1975 Fleer Immortal Roll, Burt Bell. This is going to be a theme with a lot of the earlier classes where I have the Immortal Rolls, and because some of these guys, obviously because they played in the 1920s and 1930s, they didn't really have any cards put out of them while they were still playing. And the reason I chose 75 Fleer Immortal Roll over 74 Immortal Roll is because of Trading Card Database, the main site that I use to track everything. They count the 75 set as a major release, while the 74 set is considered an oddball set. So therefore, the 75 set is what they count as their first card in a major release. So anyways, so we got the 1975 Immortal Roll Burt Bell. Then the 75 Immortal Roll Joe Carr. And then we have our first two that I don't have any cards of yet, starting with Dutch Clark, who is a 1935 National Chickle, and Red Grange, which I count the 1933 Gaudy Sport Kings. And then we have the 1952 Bowman Large, George Halas. I got this at the Natty in Chicago, or not Chicago. This was at the Cleveland one, I'm pretty sure, in 24. I was hoping that I was going to be able to make it to the show this year in Chicago, but I don't think that's going to end up happening. And then after that is the 1955 Topps All-American Mel Hein. This kind of goes against my conventions because this is technically not technically, it is a collegiate set, but it's also the closest thing to a player era card that we have for any of these guys. So even though it's not a major release, I do count these. And then here's another one, the 1955 Topps All-American Wilbur Fats Henry. It's hard to flip these over with one hand. Wilbur Henry. And then this one's a really fun one, the 1955 Bowman Baseball, Cal Hubbard, Packers legend, and the only person to be inducted into both the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the National Baseball Hall of Fame up in Cooperstown. It's funny, they even mention on the back of the card his time with the Packers. And then the 75 Immortal Roll Curly Lambeau, 75 Immortal Roll Tim Mara, 75 Immortal Roll George Marshall, the 75 Immortal Roll Blood McNally, and another one I don't have yet, the Bronco Nagurski, which is the ever so expensive 1933, or not 33, 35 National Chickle. Probably the most, I'd have to assume that's probably the most valuable 1930s football card in general. I can't remember off the top of my head if there's one that's commands as much money as that card regularly does. And then the 1955 Topps All-American, Ernie Nevers. And then I do not have Jim Thorpe. That one I count the 33 Gaudy Sport Kings. And then 75 Immortal Roll Jimmy Konzelman. 75 Immortal Roll Ed Healy. Or I just realized, yeah, Jimmy Konzelman, this starts a class of 64. And I just realized I also forgot the 1955 Topps All-American Don Hutson, which as a Packers fan I had to have separately in a one-touch. Now we're on to 64, starting with Jimmy Konzelman, and then continuing 1964 Ed Healy. And then there's Clark Hinkle, which I don't have. It's also a 55 or a 35 National Chickle. And Link Lyman. And then Mike McCallsk, which his is also the Immortal Roll. That's the only Immortal Roll that I don't have yet, because that one is surprisingly very expensive compared to the other ones from this set that I already have. Like, I think the cheapest one I've seen recently is like $20 or somewhere around that. And then the 75 Immortal Roll Art Rooney. And then 75 Immortal Roll George Trafton. And then now we're on to 1965. Guy Chamberlain. Have Patty Driscoll, 75 Immortal Roll. Immortal Roll Dan Fortman. And then this one was a super fun one I like. The 1950 Bowman Autogram. You can see at the bottom that there's not exactly any corners on this card, but this one I picked up at the 23 Natty in Chicago, and I actually got this at a really good deal compared to what it regularly goes for, obviously, because there's literally no corners on the card. I got it, it was at $150 at the booth, and I had a bunch of other extra vintage Hall of Famer rookies that I brought with me for trade bait, and I managed to get him down to paying $90, or no, not 90, it was $90 in credit I got for them. I ended up paying $60 cash plus a bunch of extra Hall of Famer rookies I had for this, and even with no corners, $60 for an autogram rookie is a deal that I'm sure many people, especially many Browns fans, would definitely take. And then next up after that, have the 1948 Bowman Sid Luckman. I got this one for a steal too. It was a guy at the Hilliard, my local card show, and yeah, it was this one, the Sammy Baugh, or no, I'm thinking of the Leaf. This one, I don't actually remember where I got this one. I think I did get this one at the Hilliard show. I only really picked this up because it was super cheap. I don't actually remember how much this one was. But the 1948 Leaf Sid Luckman is the one that I got, that I do remember how much I paid for this one. It was this one, the Sammy Baugh, and there was a third one that I don't actually remember what the third one was, but it was $100 total for the 3 cards, and considering 2 of them were Sid Luckman and Sammy Baugh rookies, that's a pretty solid deal. Then we have the 48 Bowman Steve Big Boy Van Buren. I do not have his Leaf rookie. For the vintage guys, I am still chasing all versions of their rookie cards just because there's significantly more value in those than the 80s, 90s, 2000s guys. So those ones, you'll notice that I still have all the rookie cards for them. It's mainly just the newer guys that I stopped doing that with, because there's like 50 different LaDainian Tomlinsons, or like 60 different Calvin Johnsons. I'm not chasing that many cards. I honestly don't really care enough to have to try to find every single one of those. And then, anyways, next up is the 48 Bowman Bob Waterfield. And I do not have his leaf. And the 48, this is starting off the class of 66. We have the 48 Bowman Bullet Bill Dudley, or on the back of his card is the Bluefield Bullet. And then Dudley, I do have his leaf rookie. You see Bullet Bill. And then the Immortal Roll Joe, I'm still not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Guyan. I'm still honestly not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing that one right. And then Immortal Roll Arnie Herber. I was very lucky to find that one for $1. And then the Immortal Roll Walt Kiesling. And then the 48 Bowman George McAfee, no relation to Pat. And then I do also have his leaf. I have the one without the nickname. There's another one that has Gorgeous. There it is, Gorgeous George, which is his nickname, which I had never even heard of until I saw that card. And then we have the 52 Bowman Large Steve Owen. And then I also have the 52 Bowman Small Steve Owen. And then the Immortal Roll Shorty Ray. Very hard autograph to find for the people who collect every autograph of Pro Football Hall of Fame inductees. I could never do that. I don't have nearly enough money to try to do that. And then this one was a fun one. The 48 Bowman Bulldog Turner. He's a short print in the set. It's when the card number, I believe it's when the card number is divisible by 3 is the short print. It's either 3 or 6. I don't actually fully remember. I'm pretty sure it's every 3 cards in this set is a short print. The only other Hall of Famer rookie in this set who is a short print, I'm pretty sure, is Pete Pios. But the Bulldog is also pretty expensive as well. I got this one at the Natty in Chicago. I'm pretty sure. At least I think it was the Chicago one. And then I also have his Leaf rookie. And then we have another one that I don't have yet, starting off the class of 1967. I have Concrete Charlie, Chuck Bednarik. That one, the 48 Leaf, is also another ridiculously expensive card that I do not have the, like $1,500 needed to get myself one of those. And then the Immortal Roll, Charles Bidwell. And then this one I got at the Natty in Cleveland, the 52 Bowman Large Paul Brown. I got this for a whopping $30 because there's no back on it. It's very funny. I mean, I don't usually display anything involving the backs of cards, so I mean, it's like the front, it looks solid, but there's just literally no back on it. So I mean, like, it's $30. I haven't really seen one even remotely that cheap with one that actually has the back on it. So I like to think I still got a decent deal on that. And then this was the third one from that deal earlier. It was the 48 Leaf Bobby Lane, the blonde bomber. This one I got so cheap because there's a little pinhole in the top. They took a piece out of his hair. But yeah, this was the third card. It was the Leaf Sid Luckman, the Bowman Sammy Baugh, and the Leaf Bobby Lane. They actually spell his name wrong on the front. They spell it right on the back, but they put Bobby IE on the front. And then after that, we have the immortal role Dan Reeves. Hopefully the other Dan Reeves, the famous longtime Broncos head coach, will also eventually get in, but for now, this is the only Dan Reeves in Canton. Hopefully that'll eventually change. And then I do not have Ken Strong. His rookie is also the 35 National Chickle. I do not have any cards from that set, let alone any of the Hall of Famer rookies, so you're kind of seeing a trend there. And then the 52 Bowman Small, Joe Stidehar. And then the first Lombardi-era Packer who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. We have the 51 Bowman Emlyn Tunnel. He played for the Packers in '61, meaning he won a championship with the Lombardi Packers, which is why I say the first Lombardi-era Packer inducted into Canton. And then starting off the class of 1968, we have Cliff Battles, another 1935 National Chickle, which I do not have. And then the 52 Bowman Large, Art Donovan. This guy was one of my, I'm trying to remember, it was one of my uncles up in Dunkirk, New York. This was one of his favorite players growing up. And then I also have the Bowman Small as well. And then the 1950 Bowman Crazy Legs Hirsch. And then the 52 Bowman Large Wayne Milner. It's funny, it mentions on the back, that's not Milner's signature. I don't actually know. I think that says James. I'm not actually entirely sure who wrote on the back of that card, but yeah. It mentions a very rare occurrence of Notre Dame actually beating Ohio State, which has not happened since 1936. So, fun trivia there. And then I also have the Bowman Small. And then I have the 1950 Bowman Marion Motley with just a little bit of paper loss on the front. This one I believe I got for like 20 bucks. It was a pretty solid deal. And then the 48 Bowman Charlie Trippy. Long time, very good through the mail autograph signer. The OG Golden Boy before Paul Hornung. And then I have the Leaf, which is just a little bit off-centered. And then the 48 Bowman Alex Wojciechowicz. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that one right. And then starting off the class of 1969, we have Turk Edwards, who I do not have because, again, 1935 National Chickle. And then the Immortal Roll Greasy Neal. And then Leo Namalini, again, I don't have, but this is because he's a 48 Leaf. And then we have Joe the Jet Perry, 50 Bowman. And then the last 1960s inductee I have is Ernie Stautner, the 1951 Bowman, which surprisingly was the last of the 1951 Bowman Hall of Famer rookies I needed. And so that concludes the 1960s. So now starting with the class of 1970, we have Jack Christensen, the 52 Bowman Large. And, of course, the Bowman Small as well. And then the 1950 Bowman Tom Fears. And then I do not have Hugh McElhaney. He is in 52 Bowman Large and Small. And then we have the Leaf PPOs. As mentioned, the Bowman is the other short print Hall of Famer rookie in that set, so I do not have his Bowman because that one's expensive. Oh, yeah, and then this one is also This is the green numbers variation. There's another one where the stripes in his number are yellow. There's a bunch of variations in 48 leaf. That's just the only one that I remembered to mention. And then 71, the ever so expensive 1958 Topps Jim Brown, which I do not have. And then an Immortal Roll, Bill Hewitt. And then the 55 Topps All-American, Frank Bruiser Kennard. And then this one is one that I like very much. The 1964 Philadelphia Vince Lombardi. Technically, he does appear on the 1956 Topps New York Giants team card, but this is the first card that he's the only player explicitly mentioned, at least on the front. With the play of the year, there's a bunch of players on the back, but this one he's explicitly mentioned on the front. And this is also a Lambeau Field rookie, back when it was City Stadium. But this one is an absolute blazer. I got this for $8 on eBay. It's kind of hard to see, but like the corners on this thing are sharp. Like the edges are really good. I have been going back and forth on whether I want to consider getting this card graded at some point. I don't think that'll ever happen because I'm not one to grade cards myself, with one exception. That will come later in the video. But if I do ever grade a card again, that will probably be one of the first ones I get, just because it's so high quality for being, what would that be, 62 years old? So anyways, oh yeah, this is the class of 71, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And then we got Andy Robustelli, Bowman Small. I do not have his Bowman Large. And then the 50 Bowman, the Y.A. Tittle, who was my grandma's favorite player because he reminded her of her brother. And then the 51 Bowman, Norm Van Brocklin. And then this is starting, that was the last one in 71. Now we're starting the class of 72, starting with the Immortal Roll, Lamar Hunt. Columbus Crew legend, Lamar Hunt. And then the 1952 Bowman Small, Gino Marchetti. Another long-time great through-the-mail autograph signer. This one you can kind of see is a little bit warped. I haven't really figured out how to fix that, but I feel like it adds a bit of charm to it, so I don't really plan on trying to fix that. And then the Bowman Small, Ollie Matson. I do not have the large for him either. And then the 55 Topps All-American, Ace Parker. And then now we're at the class of 1973, starting with the 57 Topps Raymond Berry. And then the 59 Topps Jim Parker, Buckeye legend, has a tree in Buckeye Grove. And then the 56 Topps Joe Schmidt, yet another long-time great through-the-mail autograph signer. I've had a few from him over the years. And then starting the class of 74, we've got the 50 Bowman, Tony Canadeo. And then the 56 Topps Bill George. I'm really excited to see what Topps does now that they've got the NFL license. I want to see if they bring back Heritage, because considering 56 Topps was their first NFL set, I'd have to assume that if they bring Topps Heritage over to football, this would be the first set that they do. But in 2001, when they originally had Topps Heritage in football, they started with the 56 set, but 57 they did 56 in 2001, 57 in 2002, and then after that they just stopped doing Heritage for a few years. And then when they brought it back, it was just a Mod Podge of a bunch of sets, similar to how Topps Archives is. So I'm intrigued to see what they end up doing if they bring back Topps Heritage. I don't know if they are or not, but if they do, I want to see how they go about that. Anyways, next up is Lou Groza, the 1950 Bowman, which I don't have. I believe he is the only Buckeye in the Hall of Fame that I do not have their rookie card yet. I'm also pretty sure he's the only guy from 1950 Bowman that I don't have yet. And then the Night Train Lane, or as the back of the card says, Dick Lane. And starting the class of 1975, got Rosie Brown. He has a great signature, if you ever have time to look it up. And then the 48 Leaf, George Connor. I do not have... I'm tempted to go for the Topps Magic, 48 Topps Magic, which are collegiate cards of some of these guys. I think it's George Connor, Chuck Bednarik, and I'm trying to think who the third guy in this set is. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. I think it was Doak Walker, maybe. But the only one I'd really chase actively would be the Bednarik, just because that one's quote-unquote only like 100 or 200 compared to the 1,500 that the Leaf rookie is. But, yeah, anyways. Then we got Dante Lavelli. And then the 1956 Topps Lenny Moore. I believe this is the biggest Hall of Famer rookie from that set. And then starting the class of 76, we have the first of the 1988 Swell Greats that appear with Ray Flaherty. This is the same deal as the Immortal Roll, guys that played in like the 20s and 30s. Yeah, late 30s, early 40s for Flaherty specifically, but since played too early for 1948 Bowman to include a card, and he doesn't really have any playing day cards, and then just like Immortal Roll, this is the first card in a quote major release that includes him. And then we have the 1955 Bowman, Len Ford. And then the 1959 Topps Jim Taylor, which features the wrong Jim Taylor. This is the Cardinals Jim Taylor, not the Packers Jim Taylor. It took them until 1961 Topps, his third card, to include the correct Jim Taylor on his cards. And then we have Frank Gifford, who I do not have. He's in 52 Bowman, large and small. And then after that, let me just kind of readjust my stuff here so I can make more room for this next little batch of stuff. Move the 60s back into the box again here. There we go. Then is starting off Gifford was the first one for the class of 77, by the way, I forgot to mention that. Sticking with 77, we had the 1966 Philadelphia, Gale Sayers. This was a very fun one because I paid $110 for this card, and less than a week later, there was a vintage card thread on Twitter that I was looking at, and someone had a super beat up but still pretty solid copy of this card for $10. And there was also a 1970 Topps Gale Sayers in much better condition that was included with it. So technically, I paid $5 for a second copy of the Gale Sayers rookie, and I actually ended up giving the that second much lower grade copy to one of my buddies, Brad, who also collects Pro Football Hall of Famer rookies, because Sayers was one of the few 1960s rookies that he did not have yet. So I figured, since I knew we were gonna meet up at the Natty in Chicago, I gifted that card to him, and he was very, very much thankful. That was one of my favorite stories involving Hall of Famer rookies. And then, oh yeah, I also have the 1960 Topps Forrest Gregg and a PSA 2. This is one of the 2 PSA graded Hall of Famer rookies in the main collection. I do have a side one that will be mentioned later. And then the 1957 Topps Bar Star, my most valued, not valuable, the most valued card in my collection. I saved up for an entire summer to buy this card, and it eventually led me to building a now complete player era project. That was very fun. That's still my favorite card in my collection, no matter how many Dobbins cards I get. And then the 88 Swell Greats Bill Willis, Buckeye legend. Pretty sure he has a tree in Buckeye Grove. And then starting the class of 78, there's Lance Allworth, which I do not have, the very expensive 1963 Fleer. Him and Len Dawson are the 2 big boys in that set. Both of them are like $500 and $700 each. And then the 88 Swell Greats Weeb Eubank. And then the Swell Greats Tuffy Lehmans. And then the 63 Topps Ray Nitschke. Another great card where you'd never be able to tell that he's actually 26 years old in this photo. I can't wait to turn 26 myself so I can compare how bald I become. And then finishing off 78, we have the 63 Topps Larry Wilson. And then starting the class of 1979, we have Yale Larry, 52 Bowman Small. I do not have the Bowman Large. And then I have the 66 Philadelphia Dick Butkus and an SGC 1. I believe I paid $110 for this one as well. The seller had it at $125, I think, and I managed to get him to go down to $110. You can see someone filled out the quiz on the back of the card. It's probably half the reason why it got an SGC 1. And then there's the 1960 Fleer Ron Mix, who is definitely a character if you send to him for an autograph through the mail. He will not sign. He will keep your card and tell you to go find him at a memorabilia show. Then we have the 57 Topps Johnny Unitas with a big crease directly down his face, but that's half of the reason I managed to get this for only $135, which is a very good deal for what is probably the second best rookie card in that whole set, if not number 1. I believe Bart Starr just about edges him out because of Unitas. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, he was double printed in that set. So despite him and the Bart Starr being roughly about the same in value, maybe like a few hundred off, but they're very, very close in value. But I think the Bart Starr edges Unitas out because Unitas was double printed. Anyways, that's it for the 70s. Now on to the 1980s, starting with the class of 80. We got Herb Adderley, the 1964 Philadelphia. And they actually spell his name wrong. There's supposed to be a second E there. It's Adderley. And then the 1963 Topps Deacon Jones. Before he had his nickname, I'm pretty sure. And then 1962 post Bob Lilly. And then I do also have the true rookie, his 63 tops. This one was a fun story. The last day I was at the Chicago Natty in 23, I was on my way out of the building, and I passed by this booth of this really nice old guy, and he had a bunch of like random binders laid out on his table, and one table had a few vintage football cards, so I'm like, I might as well. I'm already on my way. I might as well flip through one last booth. And in the middle of the binder, literally dead center middle of the page, was this Bob Lilly rookie. And it was $100, which I'm pretty sure is still a pretty good deal. Once I get a card, I kind of stop paying attention to what they comp out at. I'm pretty sure that's still a good deal. But it was very funny that I find another card that I was actually looking for, and I only find it while I was already on my way out of the show. So that was a fun story. And then 1961 Fleer Jim Otto. I do not have his Topps rookie yet. And then starting the class of 81, we have Red Badgrow. And then the 54 Bowman, George Blanda. This was actually gifted to me by one of my buddies after I graduated high school. I hope he's still doing well. I don't think we've talked very much recently, but I hope he's doing all right. And then the 64 Philadelphia, Willie Davis. And then the 1955 Bowman, Jim Ringo. An extra of this card was one of the ones that I used to trade for that autogram. And then there's, starting the class of 82, we have the 54 Bowman, Doug Atkins, the other rookie card from that set. And then the 59 Topps, Sam Huff, which it's funny, I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but like the area where you're supposed to like rub a nickel on it and it reveals a photo is actually, you can see it. It's like in white. I don't know how well it's showing. I can't really tell how well it's showing up on camera, but it's pretty funny. You can actually like see the comic on there. And didn't even have to rub a nickel all over it to find it. And then Swell Greats, George Musso. And then 64 Philadelphia, Merlin Olsen. Defensive Rookie of the Year by Pro Football Illustrated. And then starting the class of 83, we have the 64 Topps, Bobby Bell. One of the 2 Chiefs Hall of Famer rookies in that set. And then the 1960 Fleer, Sid Gilman, Buckeye legend. Has a tree in Buckeye Grove. And then the 58 Topps that I do have, the 58 Topps Sonny Jurgensen, who is my aunt up in Dunker, her favorite player. She actually also has one of these that her late husband gave to her. And then there's 59 Topps, Bobby Mitchell. And then the 65 Philadelphia, Paul Warfield. Sadly, this writing is on the card, not on the sleeve. But I got this for a whopping $4, so I think that's a pretty solid deal. And then starting the class of 84, I have Willie Brown, who I do not have. It's the 65 Topps, the tall boy cards. And then there's Mike McCormack, 1955 Bowman. /65 Philadelphia Charlie Taylor. He was in 2018 Panini Classics, my beloved set, my favorite set. And then there's 51 Bowman Arnie Weinmeister. And then starting the class of 85, we have the 1955 Bowman Frank Gatsky. Tomorrow I'm actually going down to Huntington, West Virginia for my cousin's high school grad party, and we will be passing over the Frank Gatsky Memorial Bridge in Huntington, which goes over the Ohio River, connects it to Proctorville. This Marshall legend, so of course he has a bridge in Huntington. And then there's the ever so expensive 1965 Topps Joe Namath, which will likely be one of the last few cards that I get in this collection, if I ever complete it. And then the Swell Greats Pete Rozelle. And then the 1970 Topps OJ. This one, I don't know how well I can get it to show up, but someone drew glasses on him. You can kind of see it there. And then they also colored in the little cartoon on the back. And then the last one for 1985, I have the 1972 Topps Roger Staubach, which my mom said has goth eyes because someone circled his eyes. I think he has 2 or 3 cards in this set, but this one is like the true rookie. Got that. Get readjusted again here real quick. Get all the 70s guys back in here. Now that we're about halfway through the 80s. Starting the class of 1986, we have my second favorite card that I own, the 1957 Topps Paul Hornung. Very long-winded story, but basically he unironically saved my life and helped me find purpose. I actually, when I recently redid my room and repainted, we actually hung up my jersey that I have and the photo that I got with him in March of 2020. I met him at, it was a show up in Worthington, and it was March 8th of 2020, literally just 1 week before the pandemic started. And if I remember correctly, that was either his last public appearance or like his second to last public appearance before he passed in November of 2020. So it was very nice to finally get to meet him, considering he quite literally saved my life. And then next up is the 1971 Topps Kenny Houston. And then the 71 Topps Willie Lanier. Great through the mail signer. And then the 62 Post Fran Tarkenton. And then I do also have the 62 Topps Fran Tarkenton with just a little bit of paper loss on his head. And then the 48 Leaf Doak Walker. And then starting off the class of 87, we have my dad's favorite player of all time, Larry Zonka. Great through the mail signer. I actually managed to get him to sign and personalize both a card for me and a card for my dad, which I ended up giving him for his birthday, and he absolutely loved it. So if on the off chance that Larry, if you're watching, Larry, thank you very much once again. And then the Len Dawson, which I mentioned earlier, is the other big boy in that 63 Fleer set, which I do not have because I don't have $700 to spend on a whim. And then the 71 Topps Joe Green, which I got at a card show at the Greater Columbus Convention Center, which is where the Columbus Card Fest is going to be in late June. I am very, very excited for that show. I will definitely be there. So if anyone is going to that, keep an eye out for the J.K. Dobbins jersey. Don't be scared to say hi. And then we have the 1955 Bowman John Henry Johnson. And then the 73 Topps Jim Langer. And then the 61 Fleer Don Maynard. I do not have his Topps yet. And then the 72 Topps Gene Upshaw, which I'm pretty sure I got up in Cooperstown, ironically. And then starting the class of 88, we have Fred Biletnikoff, who I do not have. Another one of those 65 Topps tall boys that I don't have. I don't think I have any of the Hall of Famer rookies in that set. And then the 62 Topps Mike Ditka. A little bit of paper loss on the back. And then the 73 Topps Jack Ham. And the 1970 Topps Alan Page, who recently started signing through the mail a lot. I think he charges $30, I'm pretty sure. Which I do need to get, because that's another one I can get for the Classics collection. So I might be trying to get that soon. And then there's starting the class of 89. We have Mel Blount, the 75 Topps. The design most recently featured in the most recent Topps Chrome. They did a throwback insert set with this design. And then we have the 1971 Topps Terry Bradshaw in a SGC3. And then the 1973 Topps Art Shell. And then the last one for the 1980s, we have the 63 Topps Willie Wood. That concludes the 1980s. Now we're on to the 1990s. Starting off with the 1964 Topps Buck Buchanan. I'm not going to try to pronounce his actual name because I know I'm going to say it wrong. And then the 68 Topps Bob Greasy, just a little bit off-centered. You can kind of see the card below it on the sheet poking through. And the 73 Topps Franco Harris, which some kid in the 70s graciously wrote a 73 on so that no one would ever forget what year this was made. And then the 72 Topps Packers legend, Ted Hendricks. I will never pass on an opportunity to remind people that he was a first-team All-Pro in his one season with the Packers in '74. Very fun trivia. And then the 76 Topps Jack Lambert. And then the big boy from 1951 Bowman, the Tom Landry rookie, which is a little bit of paper loss on the corners. But I believe I got this for about $20. And then the Bob St. Clair 55 Bowman. And then the 79 Topps Earl Campbell. He has like 3 or 4 cards in that set, but that one's the true rookie. And then starting the class of 91, we have the 74 Topps John Hanna. And then the 56 Topps Stan Jones. The 1991 Score Tex Schramm. And the 71 Topps Jan Stunnerud, Packers legend. And then starting the class of 92, we've got the 70 Topps Lem Barney. Another great signature. And then the 1990 Pro Set Al Davis. This one's another technicality, but I mean, it's prominent. He's prominently featured on the card as Davis announces Coliseum Accords, so I count it. And then the 64 Philadelphia John Mackey, who for some reason I used to mistake him and Jim Parker for way longer than I'd like to admit. And then the 72 Topps John Riggins, Jets legend. And then the 75 Topps Dan Fouts, starting off the class of 93. And then the 72 Topps Larry Little. And then the 1989 Pro Set Chuck Noll, which starts off... Did I already start off the class? Or no, yeah, Fouts was the first one to start 93. Yeah, and then the 1989 Pro Set Chuck Noll. This is the variation where he is only one of two current NFL head coaches. There's a variation that I believe it's one of only 3 current head coaches, to et cetera, et cetera. And then there's Walter Payton, who I do not have. I think he's the only 1970s guy that I don't have yet. Only 1970s rookie that I don't have yet. And then there is the 1989 Pro Set Announcers, Bill Walsh, which, yes, technically an insert, but I pulled this one from a pack, so I'm counting it because I pulled a Hall of Famer rookie. And then starting off the class of 94, we have the 78 Topps Tony Dorsett. Those nice green backs on them. And then Bud Grant, who is a very peculiar one because he doesn't really have that many cards at all. He's got a 1954 Blue Ribbon T CFL card. His first major CFL card was 1956 Parkhurst CFL. And I believe his first NFL card was in that, like, Roger Staubach's Ted Williams NFL whatever said. I don't remember the exact verbiage of the thing, but all 3 of those cards are significantly... Or no, it wasn't the Ted Williams set. It was it was 2006 Upper Deck Legends. That one is the first one. The first major release that he has a card in. Yeah. Anyways, 64 Philadelphia Jimmy Johnson, not the Cowboys coach. And then the 67 Philadelphia Leroy Kelly, great through the mail signer. And then the 67 Philadelphia Jackie Smith, another great through the mail signer. Included one of my favorite inscriptions, a Yuta Man. And then a 1976 Topps Randy White, who was a very, very difficult autograph to get for my classics collection, but I finally did. And he just recently started signing through the mail again. I believe he charges $10, I think it was. Just starting off the class of 95, got Jim Finks, 1950 Bowman. Long time, I believe, Bears and Vikings GM. And then now we've got the fun part. We have the 1961 Topps Henry Jordan, which I not only have that, but this is the only card that I ever got graded myself. It is a copy in a PSA 4, but if you notice, it's actually signed on the back, autograph authentic. This is one of the, at the time, there were 6 PSA graded copies of this card with an authentic auto. I believe another one has popped up since then, but it's still only one of 7 PSA graded copies of his rookie card that are signed. He passed in 1977, so there are very few signed cards of him out there, let alone his signed rookie card. Just by going off of rarity, I'd have to assume that this is a top 3 at worst most valuable card in my collection. I believe a 1964 Philadelphia that's signed is on eBay right now for $400, and that one's not even certified. But I've seen index cards of his sell for like $100 to $200. And those are obviously just index cards. That's not even like an actual card of him. So I'd have to assume that's one of the most valuable cards, if not the most valuable card that I own. Anyways, next up, we have the 77 Topps Steve Largent with a big old wax stain on the back. And then the 77 Topps Leroy Selman, where I spell his name wrong. It's 2 E's in Leroy. It's not Leroy, it's Leroy. And then the 81 Topps Kellen Winslow. Another great through-the-mail signer. And then starting off the class of 96, we have Lou Creekmer and 51 Bowman. And then we have the 73 Topps Dan Dierdorf, great through-the-mail signer if you give him $10. The 89 Pro Set Joe Gibbs. And then the 72 Topps Charlie Joyner. I really wish that they had made, I don't think there's a Bengals card of him. I don't fully remember if there is or not, but if there is, I need to go get one. And then we have the 65 Philadelphia Mel Renfro. And then starting off the class of 97, we got the 77 Topps Mike Haynes, great through-the-mail signer. And then the 91 Pro Set. This one is Wellington Mara on the left. They mention him on that. Giants owner Wellington Mara. And then we have the 1964 Philadelphia Don Shula. And then the 77 Topps Mike Webster. And starting off the class of 98, we've got the 65 Philadelphia Paul Krause. I'm going to stop showing the backs of these cards because I just now noticed that we're 58 minutes in and I'm like maybe halfway through. And we got the 57 Topps Tom McDonald. The 82 Topps Anthony Munoz. And the 83 Topps Mike Singletary. And we got the 84 Topps Dwight Stevenson. Great through-the-mail signer. And then starting off the class of 99, we've got Eric Dickerson, 84 Topps. The 70 Topps Tom Mack, great through-the-mail signer. The 79 Topps Ozzie Newsome. The only Hall of Famer rookie from that product, 62 Fleer Billy Shaw. Also the only Hall of Famer to have never played a snap in the NFL, which is honestly kind of dumb because it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not the NFL Hall of Fame. And then we got slam tracks like quarterback sacks from LT. 82 Topps I got that one for $10 out at Wright State. That was super fun. And then that's it for the 1990s. Now we're on to the 2000s. Starting with, of course, the class of 2000 with Howie Long, 84 tops. And then 82 tops, Ronnie Lott. The 81 tops, Joe Montana. It's not exactly easy to tell you, but it's actually cut a little bit short. I think it might have been trimmed at some point. You can kind of see at the bottom there, the cut is kind of off kilter a bit. But it is a legitimate copy. It's just trimmed. But anyways, and then we have Dan Rooney, which is a very weird scenario because his only cards are the 2000 Topps inducted insert set. There's an unsigned one and a signed one, and I'm pretty sure the signed one is actually cheaper, which is very funny. And then we have Dave Wilcox, 67 Philadelphia. And then we have the one, starting off the class of 2001, we have the 163 Fleer that I do have, the Nick Buoniconti. And then the 1989 Pro Set Marv Levy, which I did not actually pay $12 for. I just had the sleeve. I actually have one of those signed. I got it signed through the mail. And then 85 Topps, Mike Munchak. Another great through the mail signer. And then 84 Topps, Jackie Slater. His son Matt will likely also end up in the Hall of Fame at some point. Longtime return man for the Patriots. Has like 10 Pro Bowls. And then 75 Topps, Lynn Swann. Actually picked up that one in Pittsburgh on the way back from my Baseball Hall of Fame trip in 2022. And then the 72 Topps, Ron Yeri, who I do have a very funny story about, but unfortunately, and it does include a bit of politics, and I'm not going to get into that on this channel. And then Jet Youngblood, last of the 2001 Hall of Famers, 73 Topps. He has a very, very nice signature. And then now we can put these back in here. To the next row of cards in my little box I've got here. Starting the class of 2002 with the Ted Williams, Roger Staubach's NFL Football 1994. We have the George Allen Chalkboard Legends. And then the 77 Topps, Dave Casper. The 1981 Topps, Dan Hampton, another great through-the-mail signer. I've gotten one of those signed. And then the 87 Topps, Jim Kelly. And then I also have the 1987 Topps American, which was released in the UK, ironically. They're smaller. This is the only Hall of Famer rookie to be included in those sets. There was also a set in 1989 that has no Hall of Famer rookies. And then there's the 78 Topps, John Stallworth. And then starting off the class of 2003, we've got the 83 Topps, Marcus Allen, fellow March 26th birthday. And then the 70 Topps, Elvin Bethea, great through the mail signer. And then the 74 Topps, Joe DeLamielleure. And then the 79 Topps, James Lofton, another great through the mail signer. And then the 1960 Fleer, Hank Stram. I actually have a signed 1989 Pro Set announcers that I bought at the Natty back in 2018 when it was in Cleveland. And then There is the class of 2004, my birth year, starting off with 1966 Philadelphia, Bob Boomer Brown. And then the 65 Philadelphia, Carl Eller. The 84 Topps, John Elway. And the 89 Pro Set, Barry Sanders. I'm hoping to get the Topps traded at some point. And then starting off the class of 2005, we've got the 55 Topps All-American, Benny Friedman. And then we have the only Beckett graded card in this collection, a 84 Topps Dan Marino and a Beckett 6.5. And then similar to the Dan Rooney earlier, we have the 2005 Topps inducted Fritz Pollard, which I believe is still his only card in general. And then the 86 Topps Steve Young. I do not have the 84 Topps USFL yet. And then starting off the class of 06, got the Topps traded Troy Aikman. The 77 Topps Harry Carson, grade through the mail signer. The 1994 Ted Williams, Roger Staubach's NFL Football Chalkboard Legends, John Madden. The 1985 Topps Warren Moon. And then got this one. I do have the 84 Topps USFL Reggie White, because of course I have to have that one. Can't be a Packers fan without no Reggie White. And then I do also have the 86 Topps as well. And then the also very expensive 1972 Topps high number, Rayfield Wright. This one is also a bit off cut as well. Another one that was likely trimmed at one point or another. You can very obviously see the gap at the top there. And then starting off the class of 07, I have the 1962 Post Gene Hickerson. And the 66 Philly, Gene Hickerson. I have the 89 Topps Michael Irvin. The 1989 Score, Bruce Matthews. The 1971 Topps Charlie Sanders. The 1989 Topps Thurman Thomas. And the 1971 Topps Roger Worley, where unlike 2018 Classics, they actually spell his name correctly. It's spelled Werrell on the 2018 Classics. And then starting off the class of 08, we've got Fred Dean. The 78 Topps Fred Dean. 84 Topps Darryl Green. That's not a stain on the card. That's part of the image. I don't know why they're all like that. 81 Topps Art Monk. 72 Topps Emmett Thomas. The 84 Topps Andre Tippett. The 87 Topps Gary Zimmerman. And then starting off the class of 09, we've got the 1966 Philadelphia Bullet Bob Hayes. The 1989 Topps Traded Randall McDaniel. The 86 Topps Bruce Smith. The 89 Score Derek Thomas. And then Ralph Wilson is a very weird one because he doesn't have any cards at all. He only has those goal line art postcards. And I believe there's also like those weird like playing card decks where they like randomly have like Packers legends. There's one from like the mid 2000s that includes Ralph Wilson. But other than that, there's like no like actual trading cards of him. There's only like a playing card and a postcard. So he's going to be a very weird one to try to figure out what I'm doing about that. And then lastly, the 89 Topps Rod Woodson. So that's it for the 2000s. Now we're on to the 2010s, starting with the class of 2010. We've got the 84 Topps Russ Grimm, 84 Topps Ricky Jackson, the 65 Philadelphia Dick LeBeau, Buckeye legend, the 68 Topps Floyd Little, and the 1991 Pro Set Update John Randall, which for being a 1990 Pro Set card is very expensive on being accounted of this being his only rookie card. And then there is, of course, the 86 Topps Jerry Rice, part of my complete set. And the 1990 Topps Traded Emmitt Smith. And then starting off the class of 2011, we've got the 85 Topps Richard Dent, the 94 Topps Marshall Faulk, the 67 Philadelphia Chris Hanburger, the 1952 Bowman Large Les Richter, and the 1952 Bowman Small Les Richter. And then we have the first of the Panini Hall of Fame cards. We have the 2011 Panini Hall of Fame Ed Sable, Buckeye legend. And then the 1989 Pro Set Primetime. And then the 1990 Action Packed Rookie Update, Shannon Sharp. And then starting 2012, got Jack Butler, 57 Topps. The 89 Score Supplemental, Dermontti Dawson, which I am just now realizing that the reason that my 2025 Score Supplemental J.K. Dobbins is a purple border card is because the 89 Score Supplemental had purple borders. I'm somehow just now realizing that, even though I've had that card for like 2 months. Anyways, 1988 Topps Chris Dolman, the 1990 Score Cortez Kennedy, and the 1995 Bowman's Best Curtis Martin. And then starting off the class of this is still 2012. 1993 Stadium Club, Willie Roaf. Now starting off the class of 2013, we've got the 94 Topps Larry Allen, the 1989 Score Chris Carter, the 1973 Topps Curly Culp, if I can pick it up, the 1996 Topps Jonathan Ogden, the 1989 Pro Set Bill Parcells, the 1967 Philadelphia Dave Robinson, great through-the-mail signer, great guy. The 1995 Topps Warren Sapp. And then starting the class of 2014, got the 1995 Bowman's Best Derek Brooks. The 1974 Topps Ray Guy, where you can barely see him on his own card. I find that very funny. And then the 70 Topps Claude Humphrey, which is another one that I actually bought in Cooperstown, of all places. And then the 1997 Fleer Metal Universe, Walter Jones, great through-the-mail signer. The 86 Topps Andre Reed. The 1993 Fleer Ultra Michael Strahan. And then the 91 Score Supplemental, Aeneas Williams. Or no, wait, this was not supplemental. It's score traded in rookies. I think only 90 and 89 were called supplemental. Anyways, and then class of 2015, we have the 93 Topps Jerome Bettis. This is the second one in the set. He actually has 2 rookie cards in that set. And then the 89 Topps Tim Brown, 87 Topps Charles Haley, the 2015 Panini Hall of Fame Bill Polian, The 90 score Junior Seau with Buckeyes in the background. And the 93 Fleer Ultra Will Shields. And the 64 Philadelphia McTinglehoff. And then the 2015 Panini Hall of Fame Ron Wolf. And then starting 2016, class of 2016, we've got the 91 Pro Set Eddie DeBartolo. And then the 1979 Topps, the Steelers team leaders, featuring Tony Dungy. I do not have his 2004 playoff contenders rookie auto, and I don't have the $600 to buy one of those, so I don't think I'm gonna get that anytime soon. Anyways, and then the 1991 action-packed rookie update. He who will not be named because he steals from poor people and is a general jackass. And then I also have his score. And then the 1988 Topps Kevin Green. The 1996 Collector's Choice Update Marvin Harrison. And then the 97 Topps Chrome Orlando Pace. I actually work with his son now in the Ohio State ticket office. And then the 73 Topps Ken the Snake Stabler. The 55 Bowman Dick Stanfill. And starting the class of 2017, we've got the 84 Topps Morton Anderson Gray Hairdo. The 1995 Select Certified Terrell Davis. The 83 Topps Kenny Easley. Then this one's another oddball one. It's a 1993 Pro Line Portraits featuring Jerry Jones. Technically, his true rookie is, I believe it's 1995 Pacific Crown Royale. But I count this one because he's prominently featured on there. And then you have the 1997 Collector's Edge Extreme Jason Taylor. And then I also have the 97 SP Authentic Jason Taylor. And then there's the 2001 Topps LaDainian Tomlinson. And this is an original. It is not a reprint. There are a lot of reprints out there, and it's not one of them. And then the 99 Upper Deck Encore, Kurt Warner. And then starting off the class of 2018, we have the 2018 Panini Hall of Fame, Bobby Beathard. 76 Topps, Robert Brazile. The 1996 Finest, Brian Dawkins. And I also have the 1996 Stadium Club, Brian Dawkins. And then the 1959 Topps, Jerry Kramer, gray through the mail signer. And then the 1996 Skybox Impact Rookies, Ray Lewis, which I actually pulled from a box during our Cooperstown trip. 1998 Topps, Randy Mouse, who does not have a bridge in Huntington yet, somehow. And then the 1996 SP, Terrell Owens. And then the 2000 Skybox, Brian Urlacher. And then starting off the class of 2019, we have the 1999 Topps Gold Label, Champ Bailey. Absolute beautiful set. The Panini Pro Football Hall of Fame, Pat Bowlen. The Panini Hall of Fame, Gil Brandt. The 1997 Pacific Revolution, Tony Gonzalez. Absolute beautiful card if it gets caught in the sun just right. And the 95 Upper Deck SP, Ty Law. The 94 Topps, Kevin Mawai. The 2002 Stadium Club, Ed Reed. They call him Edward. The 1961 Fleer, Johnny Robinson. And then I do also have his tops as well. I believe he's the only 61 guy where I actually have both the Fleer and the tops rookies. In there because that completes the 2010s. Now we're finally in the current decade, the 2020s. Starting off with the Centennial Class of 2020 that had many, many inductees and was easily my favorite class of the last few years since they actually started to acknowledge the senior finalists. Starting with Steve Atwater, 89 score. 94 Stadium Club, Isaac Bruce. The 74 tops, Harold Carmichael, grade through the mail signer. The 84 tops, Jimbo Covert. The 1992 Skybox Primetime, Bill Cowher. And then the 52 Bowman Large, Bobby Dillon. And then, of course, I also have the Bowman Small. And the 1975 tops, Cliff Harris. You would never believe that he was only, how old would he have been? That would have been 27. You'll never believe that he's only 27 in this photo. And then we have Winston Hill, who I do not have. Another one of those 65 tops tall boys. And then there's the 2001 Upper Deck Vintage, Steve Hutchinson. And then the 99 tops Gold Label Edgerrin James. I actually have all three classes of his rookie cards. You see on the back it says Class 1. I actually have all three. I have the Class 2 and Class 3 for Edgerrin James. And then the Cowboys coach, Jimmy Johnson, 89 Pro Set. The 59 tops, Alex Karras. And the I do not have Troy Polamalu. Has a bunch of rookies. 2003. And then the other 89 Pro Set announcers, the Steve Sable. And then there's 79 tops, Donnie Shell. The 2020 Panini Hall of Fame, Duke Slater. The 1950 Bowman, Max Speedy. The 1951 Bowman, Ed Sprinkle. The 1990 Pro Set, Paul Tagliabue, commissioner at Berlin Wall. And then I also have the commemorative card that they made of him for this set. And then this one's a super fun one that I have. The 1951 Topps Magic, George Young. Mostly unscratched, too. And then the 1961 Topps Tom Flores. Ironically, I don't have the Fleer for him. Even though I've got the Fleer of everyone else and not the Topps. Oh, yeah, this is the... He starts the class of 2021, by the way. And then Alan Faneca, who I do not have. His rookie is the 2002 Upper Deck XL, which is like $400. And then the 2007 Topps Megatron, Calvin Johnson. The 1993 Bowman, John Lynch. The 1998 Pacific Omega, Peyton Manning. The Panini Hall of Fame, Bill Nunn. The 75 Topps Drew Pearson, which absolutely exploded after he got inducted. It went from like a $5 card to a $70 card. And then the 98 Topps Charles Woodson, who is a Packers legend and definitely never ever played anywhere else, especially not in college legend. Anyways, class of 2022, got the 95 SP Tony Baselli. The 75 Topps Cliff Branch. The 90 Score Leroy Butler. the 91 Pro set, Art McNally. And then the 1985 Topps USFL, Sam Mills. And the 88 Topps as well. And then the 2001 Topps, Richard Seymour. And then I do not have Dick Vermeil. His rookie is also that 2004 playoff contenders. That's another like $400 card. And then I have the 94 Fleer Game Day Bryant Young. It's the one tall boy card that I do have, because that one isn't like $80 at the cheapest. And then after that, we've got the class of 2023, starting with the 1997 SP Authentic Rondé Barber, the Panini Hall of Fame Don Coryell, the 1966 Philadelphia Chuck Howley, which I actually bought the moment he was announced that he got inducted, the 1978 Topps Joe Klecko, great through the mail signer, the 2007 Topps Darrelle Revis, the 1973 Topps Ken Riley, 2007 Topps Joe Thomas, the 1996 Collector's Choice Collector's Choice Update Zach Thomas, and then I also have the 96 Pacific Lithocell Zach Thomas, and the 96 Skybox Impact Rookie Zach Thomas. And then I have the 2005 Bowman First Edition DeMarcus Ware. And then starting off the class of 2024, have 2002 Topps Dwight Freeney, the 1976 Topps Randy Gradishar, great through the mail signer and also Buckeye legend, the 2006 Topps Devin Hester, the 2003 Donruss Gridiron Kings Andre Johnson, the 85 Topps Steve McMichael, Packers legend, the 2002 Topps Pristine Julius Peppers, another Packers legend, and the 2007 Topps Patrick Willis. And then for the class of 2025, I have the Score Supplemental, 1989 Score Supplemental Eric Allen, the 2004 Bowman First Edition Jared Allen. I do not have any of the Antonio Gates rookies because, again, very expensive. And then the 1989 Pro Set Sterling Sharp. Very, very happy to finally see him get inducted. And then finally, we have the most recent class, the class of 2026, which will be officially inducted in just a few months. Starting off, we have the 2001 Topps Drew Brees in a PSA 6. And then again, real copy, not a reprint. And then I also have the Upper Deck Vintage Drew Brees. And then the 84 Topps Roger Craig, great through the mail signer, but surprisingly does not add Hall of Fame inscriptions. And then the 2004 Topps Larry Fitzgerald, an original, not a reprint. I have completed this set because, again, birth year, 2004. And then 2012 Topps Chrome Luke Kuechly from OG Topps Chrome, not the most recent set that they only put Dobbins in as a redemption auto and didn't give him any other cards. And then lastly, there's Adam Vinatieri, who I do not have because he only has one rookie card and it's like $100. So that officially wraps up my new and somewhat improved Pro Football Hall of Famer rookie collection. Thank you so much for watching the hour-and-a-half behemoth of this video, and I will see you in the next upload.